U.S. Secretary of State Marco Rubio forcefully defended President Donald Trump's imposition of global tariffs on Friday in Brussels. According to Associated Press, world shares slid downward, U.S. futures fell and Wall Street appeared on track for another day of crushing losses Friday as investors counted the potential costs of Trump's latest set of tariffs, including China's retaliatory match of a 34% tariff on imports of all U.S. products. Speaking to reporters, Rubio insisted that economies were not crashing. Their markets are reacting to a dramatic change in the global order in terms of trade. And so what happens is pretty straightforward, he said. Trump announced a minimum tariff of 10% on global imports and much higher taxes on products from China, the European Union and even smaller countries like Vietnam, slapped with tariffs of 49%. Denmark's prime minister has told the U.S. during a visit to Greenland that, you cannot annex another country, even with the argument that international security is at stake. Rubio, meanwhile, says that Washington will respect Greenland's self-determination and Copenhagen should focus on the fact that the Greenlanders don't want to be a part of Denmark. Reacting to claims from Britain and France that accused Russian President Vladimir Putin is dragging his feet in ceasefire talks aimed at halting his country's invasion of Ukraine, Rubio said Putin might be. Rubio said Russia's real intentions in the negotiations will become clear within weeks. We will know from their answers very soon whether they are serious about proceeding with real peace or whether it's a delay tactic, Rubio told reporters. Now we've reached the stage where we need to make progress.
You guys ready? Let's just do questions. You guys know our ambassador?
Hello, everyone.
We brought him with us. He just started. Now he's staying behind. You're in charge.
Thank you.
He's going to do an awesome job.
Appreciate it.
No, their economies are not crashing. The markets are reacting. No, their economies are not crashing. Their markets are reacting to a dramatic change in the global order in terms of trade. And so what happens is pretty straightforward. If you're a company and you make a bunch of your products in China, and all of a sudden shareholders or people that play the stock market realize that it's going to cost a lot more to produce in China, your stock is going to go down. But ultimately, the markets, as long as they know what the rules are going to be moving forward, and as long as that's set and you can sustain where you're going to be, the markets will adjust. Businesses around the world, including in trade and global trade, they just need to know what the rules are. Once they know what the rules are, they will adjust to those rules. So I don't think it's fair to say economies are crashing. Markets are crashing because markets are based on the stock value of companies who today are embedded in modes of production that are bad for the United States. We have to be a country that thinks we're the largest consumer market in the world, and yet the only thing we export is services. And we need to stop that. We need to get back to a time where we're a country that can make things, and to do that we have to reset the global order of trade.
The Prime Minister of Denmark, which at this point owns Greenland, so Denmark, a NATO ally, is saying that it's unacceptable that one country cannot annex another country.
Well, no one's annexed anything. It's going to be up to Greenlanders. The Vice President made that clear. He's going to respect the self-determination of Greenlanders. So at some point, the Greenlanders have made clear that they want to be independent of Denmark. So that's the Greenland. Denmark should focus on the fact that the Greenlanders don't want to be a part of Denmark. That's what they should focus on. We didn't give them that idea. They've been talking about that for a long time. Whenever they make that decision, they'll make that decision. And then what we're not going to do is let China come in now and say, offer them a bunch of money and become, dependent on China.
The President said he would not rule out using military force against Denmark, a NATO ally.
No, he said he would not rule out. No. He said he would not rule out. He said, I'm not going to rule out anything if Greenland is encroached upon by a foreign power like a China or Russia or anybody else. But it doesn't matter because Greenlanders are going to make a decision. They're the ones that want to get away from Denmark. They're the ones that want to be independent. Not us. We didn't come up with that idea. They did.
And also the British and French foreign ministers said this morning that Putin was dragging his feet. Do you agree with that?
Maybe. I mean, he might be. We don't know yet. We're going to find out fairly soon. I mean, look, here's what the president wanted to do. He wants to end this war, and he wanted to test it very early in his administration. Is it possible to end this war on terms that are acceptable, obviously, to both sides? Because you can't end a war unless both sides agree. And that's what we're in the process of finding out. We will know soon enough, in a matter of weeks, not months, whether Russia is serious about peace or not. I hope they are. It would be good for the world if that war ended. But obviously we have to test that proposition. So we're working through that process. We had a visitor, that Mr. Kirill was here this week. Had a chance to sit down with him. He met with others. He'll take some messages back, and the message is the United States needs to know whether you're serious or not about peace. Ultimately, Putin will have to make that decision. The Russian Federation will have to make that decision. I think the Ukrainians have shown a willingness to enter, for example, into a complete ceasefire to create space for negotiation. At some point here fairly soon, not 6 months from now, you know, the Russians and Putin will have to make a decision about whether they're serious for peace or not, and I hope they are serious. So it would be good for the world if that war ended. Well, I said up to a path up, getting up to 5% at some point. I'm not saying overnight, but to get to that point. We think that's what NATO allies need to be spending for NATO to face the threats that it itself has identified and articulated. Here's the good news. The good news is everyone generally, with a couple exceptions, are spending more on defense today than they were 3, 4, 5 years ago. That's positive. That trend needs to continue. So the trend lines are good, but they need to continue. But this is not about spending, okay? This is not about money necessarily. This is about capability. In order for NATO to be stronger, it needs partners that are stronger. Okay? The United States commits a lot to NATO and continues to. We are as involved in NATO today as we have ever been. And we intend to continue to be. But it has to be a real alliance. And that means that our alliance partners have to increase their own capabilities.
Another petition from Russians to Russian dictator Vladimir Putin regarding the so-called SVO has been published. Relatives of missing occupiers from the 25th Assault Brigade of the Russian Armed Forces are asking him to deal with the lawlessness. They tell about the total lawlessness that the commanders of this unit are committing. There is a whole set. Extortion of money from soldiers, sending them on meat assaults to certain death, forming crippled regiments, refusing to evacuate, and much more. Many of us have been looking for our loved ones for over 2 years, and we cannot get any clarity from the command. The command of the unit, represented by commanders with the call signs Tiger and Eagle, throw our soldiers as expendable material into assaults, completely unprepared, without reconnaissance, cover, or artillery support. Soldiers are sent to assaults after serious injuries who are unable to hold a weapon. At the front, these commanders have introduced rates and extortion of money. If you pay, you will sit in the dugout. If not, you go on a one-way assault. Any attempts to call the commanders to justice automatically lead to sending them to the hottest spot on the front line. The leadership of this unit is engaged in forging the signatures of soldiers. The wounded die on the battlefield due to the lack of evacuation. They simply bleed to death, they say. Relatives note that this is not the first time they have turned to Putin for help. Despite the lack of results, they continue to appeal to the dictator. We understand the goals of the SVO, but did you set such goals? How is this possible in a state governed by the rule of law? Vladimir Vladimirovich, help us. Give the order to sort this out, the Russians said. Over the 3 years of full-scale war, thousands of similar statements have appeared from Russian soldiers and their relatives. The Russian dictator has not responded to any of them.